I wasn't supposed to go that deep into the forest that day. It was late October, cold but not freezing, the kind of cold that sits on your skin and doesn't leave. The air smelled like damp leaves and old wood. Hunting season had just opened 2 days before, and I'd taken time off work to drive out to a public hunting zone about 3 hours from home. I remember the exact time I parked, 5:42 a.m., still dark, no other cars in the lot. That should have been my first sign. Usually, even on quiet days, you'd see at least 1 or 2 trucks, headlights in the distance, someone coughing, a thermos slamming shut, something. But that morning, nothing. Just me. I stepped out of my truck and the cold hit immediately. I pulled my jacket tighter, grabbed my rifle, and checked my gear one more time. Ammo, knife, GPS, small flashlight. Everything normal, routine. I started walking in around 5:50. There was a narrow trail leading into the woods. Nothing official, just something other hunters had carved out over time. I'd been there once before, about a year earlier, but I stayed closer to the edge back then. This time, I wanted to go deeper. Less competition, better chances. That was the idea, at least. About 20 minutes in, I noticed the first strange thing: orange tape, tied around a tree branch. It wasn't unusual on its own. Hunters use bright tape all the time to mark paths or areas. But this one, it looked fresh. Too fresh. Like it had just been tied there recently. No dirt, no fading, no frayed edges. I stopped and looked around. Nothing else. Just trees. I shrugged it off and kept walking. By 6:30, the sky had started to lighten. Not fully bright, but enough to see without a flashlight. The forest looked different in that half-light. Thinner, like you could see farther than you actually could. That's when I noticed the second piece of tape. Same color. Same knot. Tied at about eye level. Now that caught my attention. 2 markers that close together? That wasn't normal unless someone was marking a specific route. I checked my GPS. I was already farther in than I'd planned. Still, curiosity got me. I followed it. The deeper I went, the quieter it got. And I don't mean peaceful quiet. I mean wrong quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just the sound of my boots pressing into leaves. And even that felt too loud. I slowed down, then stopped. Listened. Nothing. Not even distant movement. It was like the forest had been emptied. Another tape. Then another. Always spaced just far enough apart to keep me moving forward. Like someone wanted me to follow them. That thought crossed my mind, but I brushed it off. Hunters mark paths all the time. That's all this was. It had to be. Around 7:15, I found something that made me stop completely. A backpack lying on the ground. Half open. Dark green. Mud-stained. Looked like it had been there overnight. Maybe longer. I approached slowly. "Hello?" I called out. No response. I nudged it with my boot. Nothing. Then I crouched down and opened it the rest of the way. Inside, water bottle, some jerky, a box of ammo, and a hunting license. Still valid, still clean, like whoever owned it hadn't planned on leaving it behind. That's when the feeling hit me. Not fear, not yet. Just something was off. I stood up and looked around again. That's when I realized something. The tape had stopped. No more markers, just trees. Every direction looked the same, and I couldn't remember exactly which way I'd come from. I pulled out my GPS again. It took a few seconds to load. Too long. When it finally did, the signal was weak. Glitching. The map kept shifting slightly like it couldn't lock my position. That's when I heard it. A sound, far off. A crack, like a branch snapping. I froze. Listened. Another crack. Closer this time. Heavy. Too heavy to be a small animal. I slowly turned in the direction of the sound. "Hey!" I called out. "You out here?" Silence. Then, footsteps. Slow. Measured. Not running. Not random. Walking. Toward me. I felt my chest tighten. "Hello?" I said again, louder this time. The footsteps stopped. Just like that. Cut off. Like whoever, or whatever, heard me and froze too. We stood there. separated by trees I couldn't see through, listening to each other. Then it started again, but this time, it was circling, not coming straight at me, moving to my right, then behind me, then to my left, slow, deliberate, keeping distance. That's when fear finally hit, real fear, the kind that makes your hands shake even when you try to stay still. I raised my rifle slightly, not aiming, just ready. "All right," I said, trying to sound calm. "This isn't funny." No response. Just another step. Behind me. I turned fast. Nothing there. Just trees. But I knew I'd heard it. I knew something was there. Then I noticed something else. Another piece of orange tape, tied to a tree, behind me. At eye level. Fresh, clean, exactly like the others. I stared at it. My stomach dropped. That tape hadn't been there before. I would have seen it. I was sure of that. Another step. Closer. Too close. I swung around again. Still nothing. I didn't wait anymore. I turned and started walking. Fast. Not running yet. Just trying to stay calm. Pick a direction. Keep moving. The footsteps followed. Matching my pace, not rushing, not attacking. Just there. I walked faster. They did too. Then I heard breathing. Low. Rough. Not mine. That's when I ran. Branches hit my arms. Leaves slipped under my boots. I didn't care where I was going anymore. Just away. Away from the sound. Away from whatever was out there. But as I ran, I started seeing the tape again. More of it. Everywhere. Left, right, ahead. All tied at the same height. Like I was being funneled. And then, I broke through the trees, back into the parking lot. I stopped, bent over, trying to catch my breath. My truck was right there, exactly where I left it. I checked my watch. 6:12 a.m. I stared at it. That wasn't possible. I'd been walking for over an hour, at least. I turned back toward the forest. The trail entrance looked normal, quiet, empty, no tape, no movement, nothing. I didn't go back in. I grabbed my gear, got in my truck, and left. Didn't stop driving until I hit the highway. Later that night, I checked the hunting forum for that area, just out of curiosity. There was a post from 2 days before. A guy said his friend hadn't come back from that same section of woods. Left his pack behind, went missing. No trace. I didn't reply, didn't say anything. But sometimes, when I think about it, I keep coming back to one thing. That last piece of tape, the one behind me, perfectly tied, fresh, like someone had placed it there while I was standing still. I wasn't even supposed to be on that shift. It was mid-January, cold season, the kind where the hospital never really sleeps because people keep coming in with fevers, infections, breathing issues, everything at once. I worked as a junior nurse at a private hospital just outside the city. Not huge, but busy enough. That night I got a call around 5:10 p.m. One of the senior nurses had called in sick, and they needed someone to cover the night shift, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I didn't want to go, but I needed the extra money, so I said yes. By the time I got there, it was already getting dark. The hospital always felt different at night. During the day, it was loud. Machines beeping, people talking, footsteps everywhere. But at night, everything slowed down. The lights felt dimmer, even though they weren't. Sounds echoed more, and every empty hallway looked longer than it actually was. I was assigned to Ward B. It wasn't ICU, not emergency, just general patients. Mostly older people, some recovering from surgery, a few long-term cases. Nothing unusual. At least that's what I thought. My shift officially started at 7 p.m. By 8:30, I'd already done my first rounds. Checked vitals, administered medication, spoken to a couple of patients. Everything normal, routine. The first strange thing happened around 9:12 p.m. I remember the exact time because I checked the clock twice. I was at the nurse's station, writing notes, when I heard a call bell, one of the patient rooms, room B12. I looked up at the board. B12 wasn't supposed to be occupied. It had been empty since the morning. The patient had been discharged earlier that day. I figured it was a system glitch. Old building, old wiring, stuff like that happens. Still, I got up to check. The hallway was quiet, too quiet, even for that time. Most patients were either asleep or watching TV quietly. The lights buzzed softly above me as I walked. When I got to B12, the door was slightly open. That stopped me. I was sure I'd seen it closed earlier. I pushed it open slowly. Hello? No answer. The room was empty, bed made, curtains still, no equipment running, nothing. But the call bell light was still on. I walked over to the bed and checked the button. It was resting on the mattress, not pressed, not stuck, just sitting there. I reset the system from the wall panel. The light turned off. Problem solved, or so I thought. I turned to leave, and that's when I noticed the bathroom door closed. That didn't make sense. We always leave them slightly open in empty rooms. Always. I stood there for a second, just looking at it. Then I walked over and knocked lightly. Hello? Anyone in there? Nothing. I opened it, slowly, empty, dry sink, clean floor, no signs of anyone. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding and stepped back. Probably housekeeping forgot something. That's all. I left the room, closed the door behind me, and went back to the station. At exactly 9:26 p.m., the call bell rang again. Same room, B12. This time I didn't move immediately, I just stared at the board. The light blinked steadily, waiting. One of the other nurses looked up. "You're not getting that?" I forced a small laugh. "Probably just a faulty switch." She shrugged. "Still, you should check." So I went again. Same hallway, same silence. But this time, it felt heavier, like the air had thickened. When I reached the door, it was open wider than before. I didn't remember leaving it like that. I stepped inside. "Hello?" Nothing. But something had changed. The bed. It wasn't neatly made anymore. The sheets were slightly wrinkled, like someone had sat on it. I froze. I knew for a fact I hadn't touched it. Slowly, I walked closer. That's when I saw it. A dent on the edge of the mattress. Fresh, like someone had just gotten up. I stepped back immediately, heart pounding now. Not fast, not panicked, just heavy. Then, the bathroom door creaked. I snapped my head toward it, still closed, but I hadn't touched it, and I knew it hadn't been fully shut before. "Okay," I whispered to myself. Not funny. I moved toward the door again, each step slower than the last. I reached for the handle, paused, then opened it. Empty. But this time, the mirror above the sink was fogged. That made no sense. No running water, no heat, no steam, just fog. And in the center of it, a mark, like someone had dragged a finger across it, not writing, not words, just a long, uneven line. I stepped back so fast I hit the wall behind me. I didn't stay. I left the room immediately, didn't even close the door. Back at the station, I told the other nurse. She frowned. "Are you sure that room was cleared?" "Yes," I said. 100%. She checked the system, then paused. "That's weird," she said. "What?" "It's still listed as occupied." My stomach dropped. "That's not possible." She turned the monitor toward me. "Room B12. Patient name still there. No discharge recorded." "But I saw them leave this morning," I said. "I helped move the patient." She shook her head slowly. "Well, according to this, they're still here." I didn't argue, didn't try to make sense of it. We decided to leave it for the morning shift to fix. Ignore it. Old system glitch. That's what we told ourselves. The rest of the ward stayed quiet. Too quiet. No more call bells. No movement. Nothing unusual. Until 2:47 a.m. I was doing rounds again, checking vitals, room by room. When I got to B11, I heard something. From B12, a sound, soft, like breathing. I stopped, listened. There it was again, slow, deep, coming from inside the empty room. I stood there for maybe 10 seconds, frozen, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. Then, a faint tapping, 3 knocks, from inside, on the wall. I didn't open the door. I didn't check. I just turned around and walked away. Slow at first, then faster. I didn't go back to that room for the rest of the shift. At 7 a.m., the morning staff came in. I handed over everything, including B12. One of the senior nurses looked confused. B12? She said. That room's been empty for 2 days. I didn't respond. I just grabbed my bag and left. But as I was walking down the hallway toward the exit, I heard it one last time. A call bell behind me. I turned, the board lit up. Room B12, and just for a second, I saw the door slowly close on its own. This happened during the rainy season. Late June, the kind of night where the rain doesn't fall in drops. It just pours like a sheet. Constant, loud, heavy enough to blur everything outside your windows. I remember because the power had gone out twice that evening. I was alone with my daughter. She was 6 at the time. We lived in a small 2-bedroom house at the edge of a quiet street. Not isolated, but not crowded either. A few neighbors, dim streetlights, one long road leading in and out. Her father wasn't in the picture anymore, so it was just us. That night, I'd put her to bed around 8:30 p.m. She fell asleep quickly. She always did when it rained. Something about the sound calmed her. By 10 p.m., the whole house was quiet. Too quiet, even with the rain. I was in the living room sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone. The generator was running low, so I kept most of the lights off. Just one lamp in the corner. The shadows in the room felt longer than usual, stretched, uncomfortable. That's when I heard the first sound. A knock. Soft. Not on the front door. On the side of the house. I froze. Listened. The rain was loud, but I knew what I heard. A knock 3 times. I sat up slowly. Waited. Nothing. I told myself it was probably something loose outside. A branch. Maybe something hitting the wall because of the wind. That made sense. It had to. I relaxed slightly and leaned back again. Then it came back. Knock, knock, knock. Same rhythm, same place. This time I stood up, slowly. My heart had started beating faster now. I walked toward the window, the one facing the side of the house. I didn't open the curtain fully, just a small gap. Enough to look outside. Nothing, just rain. Heavy, blinding rain. The ground was already flooding slightly near the edge. No person, no movement. I stood there for a few seconds longer, then closed the curtain. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. At exactly 10:18 p.m., the power went out. Everything went dark. The generator had finally died. The rain sounded louder immediately, like it had moved closer. I stood there in the dark for a second, letting my eyes adjust. Then I turned on my phone flashlight. The beam cut through the room just enough to see. Furniture, walls, normal. I started walking toward the hallway. I wanted to check on my daughter. That's when I heard it. A sound behind me. A step. Soft. Barely there. But not mine. I stopped immediately. The light in my hand shook slightly. I didn't turn around. Not yet. I listened. Silence, just rain. Then, another step. Closer. I turned fast. Nothing. Empty living room. My chest tightened. I whispered, "Hello." No response. I moved backwards slowly, toward the hallway. The floor creaked under my feet. And then, another creak, behind me, matching mine. I froze again. That's when I realized something. Every time I moved, there was a second sound, a fraction of a second after mine, like someone was stepping where I had just stepped. I tested it. I took one slow step back. Creak. Then, creak. Behind me. Not echo. Not delayed sound. Separate. Deliberate. My breathing got heavier. I didn't understand what was happening, and I didn't want to. I turned and walked faster toward the hallway. Step, step, step. And behind me, step, 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 perfectly in rhythm. I reached my daughter's room and pushed the door open. She was still asleep, curled up, peaceful. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me, locked it. The footsteps stopped, completely, like whatever it was, didn't follow me in. I stayed there for a while, sitting on the edge of her bed, listening, watching, nothing, just rain. I started to calm down, slowly. Maybe I imagined it, maybe the stress, the darkness, the storm. Then a sound from outside the door, a step right outside, then another and another. Slow, walking across the hallway, not toward me, just pacing back and forth. I held my breath, didn't move. It went on for minutes, maybe longer. Then it stopped. Silence again. I thought it was over. I really did, until I heard my daughter's voice, right next to me. "Mom?" I looked down. She was still asleep, eyes closed, didn't move. But I heard it, clear as day. "Mom, someone's in the house." My blood went cold. I slowly turned my head toward the door. The handle was moving, very slowly, like someone was trying not to make noise. Turning it, carefully, but I had locked it. The handle stopped. Then, a knock, soft, 3 times, from the other side, same rhythm as before. Knock, knock, knock. I didn't answer, didn't move, didn't breathe. Minutes passed, or maybe seconds. I couldn't tell anymore. Eventually, the handle stopped moving. The footsteps didn't come back. Nothing else happened that night. The power came back around 3 a.m., and when it did, I finally opened the door. The hallway was empty, but the floor was wet, not from rain, from footprints, bare footprints, starting from the living room and stopping right outside my daughter's door. Only one set. I checked the front door. Locked. Back door. Locked. Windows. All shut. No sign of forced entry. Nothing missing. Nothing broken. Just those footprints. And the part that still doesn't sit right with me is this. They only went one way. Into the house. Not outside.